As it has already been said, my name is Benjamin Mauck from the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and I'll be presenting on managed aquifer recharge for stormwater management on the Cape Flats in Cape Town. So just to give you an introduction, the City of Cape Town is the second largest contributor to South Africa's growth GDP. That's second behind the City of Johannesburg. And its growth rate is anticipated to increase at around 4 to 6% into the short to medium term future. In addition to economic growth, the population has grown significantly in the last 20 years. It's grown by 46% from 1996 to 2011. And due to these economic and population growths, there's increasing stress on the water supply system in the City of Cape Town. The City of Cape Town gets around 98% of its water from surface water resources, and currently the annual yield from the water supply system is around 6 million cubic meters per annum. Based on increasing demands, it is anticipated that this system will need to be additional water supply will need to be added in the year 2021. And the City of Cape Town is looking at a number of options, such as groundwater use using the Table Mountain aquifer, as well as the Cape Flats aquifer, including reuse strategies, as well as desalination. In addition to these water supply issues, there's the issue of seasonal flooding on the Cape Flats, which affects largely low-income areas, in particular informal settlements. So we need a way to address some of these issues in terms of the urban water management. And one way of doing that is through water-sensitive urban design. And water-sensitive urban design tries to assign a resource value for all urban water, including groundwater, stormwater, and wastewater. And it does this in a number of ways, through sustainable stormwater management, reuse of urban water, finding alternative supply sources, for example, groundwater, and improving the aesthetic and recreational appeal of water. So the study site for this area is the Cape Flats, which is at the southernmost point of South Africa within the Cape Town metropolitan area. The Cape Flats is a relatively flat area that lies between Table Mountain and the hills of the Kales River and Tiger Valley. This area, in terms of its geology, it consists of mainly quaternary sands, which are as a result of marine, aeolian, and fluvial deposition. And these sands are underlain by Malmesbury shale and Cape granite. And it is within these sands that we find the Cape Flats alluvial aquifer. The Cape Flats has been studied on numerous occasions over the last 40 years, with early exploration beginning in the 1970s, and it has subsequently been reviewed for its bulk water supply potential on 4 occasions. On each occasion, the resource was declared a valuable resource. However, it still remains largely underutilized. However, there is increasing interest in the Cape Flats aquifer, but there still are questions around its water quality and the quantity that is available. So the main research question is, or main research objective is to test the applicability of managed aquifer recharge on the Cape Flats aquifer. And for this presentation, 2 questions will be addressed. Can localized summer groundwater abstractions lower the water table to improve drainage and lower the risk of groundwater flooding? And what is the storage potential of the Cape Flats aquifer and the plausible managed aquifer recharge yield? So in terms of a water-sensitive urban design perspective on managed aquifer recharge, we essentially are interested in 2 aspects. We're interested in the stormwater management side of managed aquifer recharge, where stormwater or runoff from the urban area is attenuated, lowering the peak discharges. This attenuation is either in infiltration basins or detention ponds, and that water is then either infiltrated or injected into the subsurface for storage. The second component is a water supply component, where that subsurface storage is then reused for urban water supply. So the Mauck model was used to simulate the different scenarios within this for these questions that we put forward. Mauck is an integrated hydrological model that is able to simulate both groundwater and surface water components. Precipitation and evapotranspiration are the main drivers of the hydrological cycle within the model. Then catchment and groundwater or aquifer process characteristics determine unsaturated, saturated, and overland flow, including flooding. Furthermore, the river flow can be simulated using Mauck 11, and urban infrastructure can be included using Mauck Urban. Water quality can also be simulated in this framework. So Mauck was calibrated at a regional scale from 1980 to 1984 using groundwater head elevation profiles, groundwater levels, stream flow data, as well as water balance items. And the validation was conducted from 2000 to 2015 using groundwater levels. There was limited surface water data available during this time period and for this location. So 2 sites were selected. A graveyard pond, which is an informal settlement, was used to assess flood mitigation scenarios, and the Philippi site was tested, managed aquifer recharge. Graveyard Pond is quite ominously named. This is a site where informal dwellers have moved into what is essentially a stormwater basin, a dry stormwater basin, and not unsurprisingly, that floods regularly during the wet season. And in this scenario, 4 boreholes were sited at open land around the site and pumped at 2 different rates, 3 litres and 5 litres per second, during the summer months when there's a high demand for water in urban areas. The second site is a managed aquifer recharge scenario site, where water is pumped during summer months when there's a high demand, and stormwater is infiltrated during the winter months when there's an excess of stormwater. So in the first scenario, a threshold value of around 1 meter below ground level was specified. This is based on the assumption that a number of the areas that are prone to flooding occur at or near sites that exhibit water levels in excess of 1 meter. Based on this threshold, you can see that the baseline groundwater level exceeds the threshold on 11 wet seasons. With the 3 litres per second scenario, this is reduced to around 5 wet seasons, and a further reduction in the 5 litres per second scenario is reduced to 3 wet seasons in a very high rainfall period during 2008 to 2010. These volumes are then made available during the summer months for alternative water uses such as agricultural irrigation or urban infrastructure, industrial use. This graph of probability of exceedance of the 1 meter threshold supports some of the issues specified in the last slide, highlighting a probability of exceedance in the baseline case of around 48%. This is reduced to 12% in the 3 litres per second scenario, and a further reduction to 5 litres per second in the 5% in the 5 litres per second scenario. And this gives an indication that flood mitigation may be a possibility through summer groundwater abstractions on the Cape Flats. The second scenario looked at managed aquifer recharge potential, and this utilized a method used by Murray et al. In 2007, who looked at the managed aquifer recharge potential at a national scale. And this looked at the theoretical upper level of the aquifer and subtracted the mean groundwater levels in order to obtain a storage potential layer, which was converted into a relative volume. And as this graph indicates, the southern portion of this diagram illustrates the southern portions of the Cape Flats aquifer show the highest potential volume for managed aquifer recharge, and this was the main reason for selecting the Philippi managed aquifer recharge site. It was important to understand the storage and recharge volume processes, and so consecutively increasing recharge volumes were injected into the aquifer and the change in storage was plotted. The results show a proportional relationship up until a recharge volume of around 6 million cubic meters per year, after which there were excessive drainage losses from the injected water, thus indicating that a storage volume of around 240 millimeters was optimal, and a recharge volume of around 6 million cubic meters a maximum given the site and borehole arrangement. Based on reasonable abstraction rates in the area and the information from this graph, it was recommended that a 5 million cubic meter and a storage of 200 millimeters was the maximum. And based on the 15 liters per second abstraction and recharge rates, these scenarios were tested and assessed risks based on groundwater levels in local at the site and in local urban areas. So the managed aquifer recharge site showed a limited risk to local infrastructure in terms of abstraction and injection, with a range of groundwater levels well below 9 meters. In a downgradient urban area in Strandfontein, there was limited impacts from managed aquifer recharge, again showing levels below minus 10 meters below ground level. And the urban area in Mitchell's Plain, which is upgradient, showed minimal impacts to urban infrastructure, showing very little effects from the urban managed aquifer recharge. So just to give some conclusions, the flood mitigation scenario showed that groundwater abstractions may hold potential for mitigating localized flooding on the Cape Flats. However, further research is required to further understand the causes that affect local urban flooding on the Cape Flats. In terms of managed aquifer recharge potential, the available storage and high permeability of the Cape Flats aquifer indicates a potential water supply opportunity for using managed aquifer recharge. And the model scenario suggests that 5 million cubic meters could be recycled using managed aquifer recharge on the Cape Flats. And just some concluding remarks, that managed aquifer recharge could be an essential strategy towards achieving water-sensitive urban design objectives for sustainable stormwater management, water supply in the city of Cape Town. Thank you.